What is going on, guys? We are back playing some more Create Above and Beyond, and today we're going to be automating some math. It is finally time for us to get into Chapter 5, and that means messing with a whole bunch of numbers. If we open up the quest book, this right here is the start of Chapter 5, and right out the gate, this looks extremely complicated and intimidating. There's a bunch of numbers here, even some operating signs, and then a whole mess of lines pointing from numbers to other numbers and signs to numbers, and all this mess right here is actually really simple to deal with, but it scares a lot of people off, and it's made worse by the fact that every person I see do this wickedly overcomplicates the process, and I think those big builds look really complicated and intimidating when really, this whole thing right here can be solved in a build that'll take you maybe 20 minutes to do, even if you're just looking at it for the first time. So today, I'm going to show you guys how to do that because I think I came up with probably the easiest way for you to set it up if you really have no idea what you're doing. It's definitely not going to be the fanciest looking build, so if you're looking for that, well, you can make it way more complex than this, but my goal today is to make sure that people who want to finish the pack and get through Chapter 5 don't quit when they see this thing right here, and that's where a lot of people tend to do it. So this is the area that we're going to be setting this all up in. It's a relatively large space that I cleared out next to our automated test of patience, so maybe we'll get to see all the fancy rewards come in here today. Probably not though, because we're already at like 50 stacks of all these and haven't gotten them yet. But either way, I cleared out this large area mainly because this build, although it's going to be really simple, is still kind of large because there's a lot going on here. So I'm going to break it down into 3 different parts, and the first part is simply doing some casting. So I'm going to use 6 casting tables and I'm just going to place them down like right here in a row. Now you don't necessarily need 6 of these. The reason I'm using 6 is just as an example because there are 6 base casts that you start with. So you're going to start with the 4 different basic operators being subtraction, addition, multiplication, and division. And we're just going to toss those in here. And then we're going to start out with 2 different numbers. So you get 3 and you get 8. Now you need all the numbers from 0 to 9, so 10 different numbers in the end, and you only start with 2, meaning you need to use some of these different operators in very basic mathematical equations to get from, let's say, 3 to 0. You would do 3 minus 3. Now you might notice that you definitely don't need all of these operators to get from these numbers to all the other numbers between 0 and 9. So you'll need at least 2 of them, but you won't need all 4. And today, I'm definitely not going to use division because that's probably the least useful out of all of them, but I'm still going to cast it just so that if you choose to use any of these, you can, and you can see how I'm doing it, but again, not going to use all of them. So this is the first part, really, is simply casting these and then getting the actual numbers and operators out of them. And the way we do that is by using liquefied logic. And this is going to come from melting down calculation mechanisms in a magma crucible. So we're going to melt them down and then we're going to pump them out into each one of these casting tables. So I'm going to put down the magma crucible, and we should probably do this like right here because we need to have the pump coming out of the side here, and then we can put down the pipes. So we'll do that and just run it along the side here. And this will pump in the liquid logic into each one of these. And it should be really fast because each one of these only requires 1 millibucket of liquid logic to actually cast, which might sound like a very small amount, but then you also find out that in the magma crucible, when you melt down the calculation mechanisms, you only get 30 millibuckets per. So you're not getting 1,000 millibuckets, you're getting a very small number. So you still need a fair bit of the mechanisms, and you're going to need a whole lot of these numbers. Now that we've got all this placed down, that's actually all we have for part 1. We're going to have to connect this up to part 2, but this is pretty much it. So really not that bad, right? It's going to get a little bit more complicated, but it shouldn't be too bad. So the next step is going to be storage, and we're going to use item pipes coming off of all of these different casting tables, which you'll be able to pull out once the item is cast and not the cast itself. And then we're going to deposit into a bunch of drawers. Now I'm just going to put these, let's say, we should be good to put it honestly like right over here. And if we think about the total number that we are going to have if we use all 4 of these operators and then all 10 of the numbers, that's 14. So I'm just going to go and do a 5 by 3 And you might be thinking, well, that's 15. And yes, it is in fact 15. So let me just get all these down. And we're only going to place 14 of these. Number 15 is going to be a drawer controller. Now, I always work with drawer controllers, but I feel the need to explain this every single time I work with these. The drawer controllers allow you to access the inventories of every connected drawer that is adjacent to that. So this drawer controller acts as an input for all of these, and this is going to allow us to make this way more simplified than otherwise. So it still works out. We got 15 here by tacking that on, and we're simply going to bring this all the way up here. And this is where we are going to input all the different things that we cast. Now, we are going to want to lock these, so I guess I can quickly open my bag and we can just lock them right now out the gate. And they'll stay locked with whatever goes in them first. And then we need to kind of think this through. So when the items are in here, we need to pull them over here. And so what we are going to do is put in a high retrieval module. Now, the reason this is important is because we want to pull items from these, and instead of putting an extraction module in each one, we only need one retrieval module over here. The only downside is that we need to actually set a filter for this, otherwise it's not going to pull anything. The extraction module will just pull everything out if there's nothing set. The retrieval module, though, won't pull anything. Really, the important thing, though, that we need for this is not the retrieval module. That's obviously important, but it doesn't make this whole thing work. The one that makes this whole thing work is the stack limiter module. So the stack limiter module is going to limit the amount of items that can enter adjacent inventories, and this is what makes this whole thing work. And it has a very interesting interaction with the drawer controller that I've kind of talked about before, but basically right here it is saying that the maximum amount of items that can enter an adjacent inventory is 64, so one stack. Now, this actually applies individually to each one of these drawers. So let's say this drawer right here is number 3. Well, only 64 threes will be allowed to enter this drawer before it stops pulling the threes. Now, let's say this one down here is 8. If this one were only at 30, it would keep pulling the 8 until it gets to a stack. So by setting it up with this with the drawer controller, you're able to only need to use one stack limiter module and one retrieval module instead of a whole mess of pipes and things going to each individual drawer and limiting them or downgrading the drawers to make sure it's only one stack. All that junk is avoided with this. So right now, we're in a position where we've got our whole storage setup done. We've got the items that can initially be cast here being the initial 2 numbers and 4 operators being pulled out. And we've got the setup where if we were to, let's quickly hook up a numismatic dynamo, we're just going to slap this down right here. And eventually I will put power in this once we get the mechanisms in here. This is going to bring over all the liquefied logic into these and cast the items. So we're pretty much done with the first 2 steps. Now is the annoying part though, because I need to get rotational power to this right here, because I need to actually cast some of these numbers. I need to actually cast every single number at least once, and that means also doing some of the math manually so that I can fill up these drawers and also set some very important filters. So I'm going to hop off camera. I'm going to hook up some rotational power to this. It's very basic. It really needs almost none. And then I'm going to cast the initial set of numbers for 3, 8, all the operators. And then I'm going to use some mechanical crafters that I'll put down over here to do some very basic manual math just so that I can get the numbers 0 through 9, at least one of each, so that I can set the filters. Okay, well, that definitely wasn't a ton of fun, but as you can see, I've got at least one of every number and every operator in my inventory right here ready to go. And while they are kind of visually glitching, I do have the casting table here filling up with all these different numbers being cast. And we've got some liquefied logic over here in the crucible, got some rotational power going, and so we should be good to move on to automate this, because obviously when you go through, if you choose to do it like I am, you'll see how painful it is manually doing it the first time, and then you'll be really excited to automate it. So the way that you actually automate this is we're going to take a quick look at any of these numbers. Let's just say 7, lucky number 7. So with this, there's a total of 14 options that exist to calculate 7. If we look at this, the way you do it is always with 3 mechanical crafters and some form of math. So 3 plus 4, 8 minus 1, 0 plus 7, 7 plus 0, just any imaginable combination of the 4 operators that we have and the 10 different numbers to get to that number. So we're going to be setting up a bunch of mechanical crafters over here, and we can just place them down. I could put them right here, but then it would make the magma crucible kind of hidden. So I'm thinking we'll do right here, and we're going to have them push into each other in this direction. Then we're going to have a gap right here, and then we're going to do another set right here. And again, have these push into each other in this direction. So these both need to be going the same direction. And because we need 10 different numbers, but we already have a way to get 2 of them over here. This is really bothering me that this is like visually bugging out. But we have the way to get 3 and 8. Then we need a total of 8 sets of these over here. So we're going to do 4 on each side. And I'm just going to have to get out some dirt. I think I already put my dirt away. We'll have to get out some dirt so that I can get up on top of these. Let's see. Yeah, we'll just get out some dirt so I can get up here and finish these off, and then we'll get them all properly hooked up. Nope, not like that. How about, there we go. Nice. And over here, there we go. Okay, so again, all of these are going to be pushing over here like that, and then same thing over here, all connected, pushing out that side. So the way that this is going to work is I'm going to do it, and you don't necessarily need to do it the same as me, but I'm just going to go 0, 1, 2. We already have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, already have 8, and then 9, just to help me kind of keep track of what's going where. But once we have these down, we're going to put some depots to the ejection side of each one of these. So you'll need 8 depots, and this is where the item is going to get kicked out. And this whole setup is going to work based on backlogs. And it's a bunch of them, a bunch of backlogs, as many as you can think of. So we're going to come behind these, and including the depots, we're going to put item pipes on every single one of them. And I'm hoping that I have enough. I think this stack should be enough here. But we're going to connect all of these. And it's going to look kind of funny. So you could just use facades on this if you wanted to, but at least it kind of matches the mechanical crafter color, like perfectly. And then we need to get it connected to this over here. And this is unfortunately like the least elegant part of this. Unfortunately, it looks kind of gross. So we can just kind of bring this over here, and then we need to pipe wrench this because we don't want this connecting here. Not that I think anything could go in there. And I guess I could have moved these back one and then just ran it behind there, but we'll just come up. And maybe we could come up one more technically, or we could just do this and then pipe wrench it again so it doesn't connect there. So we can just do that for now. Either way, you just need to connect the pipes on the back of this to the pipes over here and the pipes over here. It's one big system. And now we need to set up the retrieval set over here and the retrieval set over there, and then the extraction set over there, or not the extraction set, the retrieval set here and the retrieval set there to make this all work. So what I'm going to do is, first off, I'm going to take each one of these and I'm going to put them in one of the drawers, and I'm just kind of going to organize this so that it is not going to bother me. So we'll do 0, 1, 2, and then we'll do 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7, 8, 9. So we'll do 6, 7, 8, 9, and then our 4 different operators. And then we are just going to grab these right back out. But the important thing here is that they are going to now be set to that specific item. So we're just going to grab all of these out, at least one of each of them. But now that we have this, we can start pulling the numbers from here. Because if we didn't have this, they could start filling up. Or if we didn't have these set, these could start pulling out. And once they filled up a stack in one of these, they'd start filling up another, I think. So we're going to come in to the pretty pipe over here, and we're going to go to the retrieval module, and we're going to set in this one the numbers that we have cast. So we're going to set 3, and this should immediately start making noise behind me in a second here. So we'll do 3, 8. We'll do all the different operators like so, and this should start pulling the numbers from these. So there we go. They're now casting, and you can see all the numbers are being pulled in here. And so 3 is going to start going up. This is definitely pretty loud, but there's no two ways around it. So Hopefully this won't make the rest of the video awful, but eventually these will finish. Now, they're pretty fast, but we, of course, like I said, need an entire stack of each of these. And so now we can come over here because we've got all the numbers that we can cast over there. They're being put into that storage. Now we're going to pull out of this storage and we're going to start doing the math. Now, I'm not going to make you guys watch each step of this. We're going to set up one of these. So this top one right here is going to be 0. Now, either way, whichever way this pushes, the math still needs to go from left to right. So even if we were to push this direction, the math at the end would still be the left number and then the operator and then the right number. So you need to keep that in mind. It's not the direction this pushes in, it's just the direction math always goes in when you're solving it. So up here, this is going to be the first number, and we can use whatever number we want. So ideally, you would want to use as even a distribution of numbers as you could possibly do, and maximize the amount of 3s and 8s that you use because those will not have other processing steps. So in this case, we would want to put in a high retrieval module, and we would want to put in an 8, and then we'd want to come to here, we'd want to put in a retrieval module here, we would want to put in a minus, and then here, we would want to put in a retrieval module, and then we would want to put in an 8. So if we come around to the front, this should have already pulled some 8s, and we'll have 8 minus 8, and it is being pulled out of here for some reason. Okay, well, I thought it was being pulled out of here because it's really doesn't look like it's there most of the time, but I guess it's just another one of the visual bugs right now. I don't really know why this is happening because this did not happen while I was planning this out, but we have 8 minus 8 up there, and once this starts, we would get a 0 out onto this depot. Now, this depot is eventually going to get pulled back over here. So what we need to do is come over here, and we need to connect a couple more of these pipes, which might seem a little bit strange. So let me get up here. And this is because of how pretty pipes work. So right here, items can only be brought in here. They can't be pulled out. So if we were to go like this and not set anything on this pipe, then the retrieval modules over there could pull items out of these using this pipe. And then finally, because we have a limited number of the filters that we can set for the retrieval, we need to have a third one. And this one right here is going to have another retrieval module in it and another stack limiter set to 64. And this one, we're going to get all the numbers that we couldn't get with the other one. So we're going to do 0, 1, 2, skip 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 9. So basically just enough room. So what this will do is it'll pull from all those depots over there once the items are done. Now, I'm going to go through and I am going to set up the math for all these other ones. You can do whatever math you want. Please do not feel like there's a right way to do this. As long as you get the final number out, it will work. Even if it takes a bunch of additional steps and it's not optimized, it will still work. So I'm going to go through and set to get all the other numbers over here. So things like 8 minus 3 to get 5, things like 3 times 3 to get 9. I'm going to do all that, and then we will hop back and I'll explain at the very end how this all works, and we'll get to see it all running. Okay, guys, well, I think that's it. So assuming that I didn't do any of the math inputs wrong, simply because I was forgetting what was supposed to be there or something, this should all be working. Now, as you can see, it's pretty slow, and a lot of these aren't running all at the same time, and that's because a lot of these are using operators and numbers. Well, I guess only numbers, because the operators all cast over here, but they're using numbers that might come from a different step. So the way this whole thing works is basically, like I said, based off of backlogs. So each one of these can only hold 64 of any number or operator. Once it hits that, it is going to stop making it. Now the cast one will work because these will just stop pulling the items out, and it'll just sit there like this multiplication symbol is doing right now. And it won't expend any of the liquid logic. That'll just go to the other ones that we need. And eventually, when they're all done, none of it will be expended, and it'll just sit and wait until it needs more. Now, the same thing basically happens with these over here, because as these craft, they output onto the depot. The depot then gets pulled over here with a retrieval module. But once we have a full stack of, let's say, number 9, we have 5 right now. But once we have a full stack, it's not going to pull number 9 off of this depot anymore. Once that happens, this will fill up with 3 times 3. It'll have 9 completed right here, sitting, waiting to go on the depot. But because of how mechanical crafters work, it will lock these 3 crafters and it won't eject the item. It's not going to kick it out because it still has somewhere to go. That space just doesn't have room. The items will get tossed on the ground, or the finished product will, if there's no place for it to be stored. But if that place is full, it'll just sit and wait. And so because it's sitting there waiting, and these are all still locked, none of these numbers will come here. So then the other ones can finish off, and eventually you'll be left with numbers 0, 1, 2, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 9 sitting in these ends of the crafters right here, and nothing will be crafting, and you will have a full stack of everything over here. And whenever these get used up, this will start up again for whichever numbers it needs to refill. Now, again, this is not the fastest, and I believe you need, I can't even remember how many you need, but in the end, when you go to chapter 5, you only need to make 8 of these. So yes, they take a lot to make, but there's no sense in making a super complicated build to do this. We're going to have plenty of the numbers if we just AFK for a bit. And if you wanted to speed this up, you could either increase the speed that this is running at, or you could cast even more of these commonly used numbers. So like 3 is really common. I tried to use 8 as much as I could. Just cast more of those. But right here, this is all you need for that. And we can go through now and we can complete each one of these. And we will be on to the, I guess, easier parts. Maybe it's not easier, but this tends to be the part that people think is the most annoying of all of chapter 5 in the future episodes. So we'll just complete that. And yeah, I think that's going to be it. So hopefully I was concise and, easy to understand. I recorded this really early in the morning, so not a great time for me to be doing math, honestly. But hopefully you guys found this to be the most basic setup you've seen for this and simplified enough that any of you feel you can do it. Hopefully you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, be sure to give it a like because I spent a really long time trying to figure out how to make this very basic so that you could all do it. And also be sure to subscribe so you never miss out on a future one. And I will talk to you guys later.